One wrong tap on her phone sent more than just a picture. It sent her career, her secrets, and her heart straight into the hands of the one man who could destroy her. The late afternoon sunlight poured through the apartment window, spreading gold across the wooden floor and catching the dust motes that floated lazily in the warm air. Emma Carter stood in front of her full-length mirror, one hand tugging nervously at the strap of her new turquoise bikini. The color shimmered faintly, the way sunlight catches shallow ocean water, and for the first time in months, she liked what she saw. Not perfect, never perfect, but confident, bold, alive. "Okay, Emma," she whispered to her reflection. "You've got this." From the kitchen came Sophie's distant voice, laughing through her phone. "I'm telling you, show me the bikini before you pack it. I need to approve it. It's tradition." Emma rolled her eyes but smiled. Sophie had been her best friend since college, the kind who knew every insecurity and didn't let her wallow in them. So, she adjusted her hair, angled her phone toward the mirror, and posed with one hand on her hip and a playful half-smile. The camera shutter clicked softly. The photo looked good, really good. She tilted her head, cheeks warming, and added a quick caption before she could overthink it. "What do you think? Beach ready, or should I return it?" Then, with her usual absent-minded speed, she tapped Sophie's name, or so she thought, and hit send. She set the phone down on her dresser and exhaled, still smiling. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed. Emma picked it up, expecting Sophie's over-the-top response, maybe a, "OMG, you're stunning." But when she glanced at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. The name on the message wasn't Sophie, it was Daniel Reed, her boss. Brightwave Agency's creative director, the same Daniel Reed who'd once told her, in a calm, measured tone, that attention to detail defines excellence. Emma froze. Her fingers went cold. The air around her seemed to vanish, replaced by a hollow roar in her ears. She opened the message. "I think you meant this for someone else, Emma. But yes, very beach ready." She stared at the words, unable to breathe. Her heart slammed so hard it made her vision blur. The photo hovered above his reply, her reflection in the turquoise bikini, all sunlight and confidence, and God, why had she tilted her hip like that? Panic detonated inside her. She dropped onto her bed, clutching her phone in both hands, muttering, "No, no, 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 no." Maybe she could delete it before he saw? No, it had already been delivered, read even. Her brain began racing through doomsday scenarios, HR investigations, office whispers, maybe even termination for unprofessional conduct. She imagined Daniel's composed face turning to polite disgust, or worse, pity. Then her phone buzzed again. No new message, just a low battery notification, but the vibration made her flinch. She stared at the screen, reading his words again. Very beach ready. Not cruel, not inappropriate, just calm, almost kind. That was the part that threw her off the most. Daniel Reed, the man known for his poise and impossible standards, had handled her catastrophic mistake with more grace than she would have expected from anyone. No reprimand, no awkward emoji, just acknowledgement and restraint. Still, her mind was a storm. She imagined walking into the office Monday morning, his eyes flicking toward her, the invisible question hanging between them. Does she always text her boss half-naked photos on weekends? She buried her face in her hands and groaned. "I'm going to have to move to another country, or fake my own death. Sophie's never going to let me live this down." Her phone buzzed again, this time for real. Sophie. "Hey, where's the photo? You're taking forever." Emma looked at the screen and almost laughed. The irony was too cruel. When she finally managed to reply, her hands were still trembling. "Can't talk right now, I accidentally sent it to Daniel." The 3 little dots appeared instantly. Then Sophie's response. "Wait, Daniel as in your boss? Daniel?" Emma collapsed backward on the bed, staring at the ceiling as the sunlight shifted across her wall, glowing the same shade as her mortification. Somewhere in the city, Daniel Reed, flawless, unflappable Daniel, was probably sipping coffee, shaking his head in disbelief at her carelessness. And yet, deep down, beneath the terror and humiliation, something in his calm reply lingered in her chest, confusing her even more than the mistake itself. He hadn't laughed. He hadn't scolded. He'd seen her vulnerability and simply responded with grace. For reasons she couldn't explain, that almost made it worse. The morning light filtered through thin white curtains as Sunday crept quietly into Emma Carter's apartment, but her mind hadn't rested all night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel Reed's name glowing on her phone screen. She had replayed that single message in her head 100 times, dissecting every word, every punctuation mark, every implied tone. I think you meant this for someone else, Emma. But yes, very beach-ready. Not cruel, not mocking, just calm, composed, almost kind. But that Dinesh only made it worse. She couldn't decide whether she wanted the floor to swallow her whole or to march into the office and apologize so hard she vanished from embarrassment. By mid-morning, Sophie was banging on her bedroom door, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Okay," she announced, plopping down beside Emma. "We are going to crisis manage this like grown-ups. What did he say again?" Emma, pale and bleary-eyed, repeated Daniel's text word for word. Sophie blinked. "That's it? No creepy emoji? No let's discuss this in my office nonsense?" Emma shook her head miserably. "No, which means he's probably planning my execution in silence." Sophie snorted. "Emma, he's your boss, not a mobster. Honestly, his response sounds gracious." Gracious. That word lingered like a strange aftertaste. Emma glanced toward the window, where the light had turned colder, harsher. "You don't understand. Daniel Reed doesn't do casual. He's meticulous. He once rejected an ad campaign because the kerning on a headline was off by 1 pixel. Sophie shrugged. Then maybe he appreciates precision, and he appreciated how precise that bikini fit. "Sophie! I'm just saying," she laughed, dodging the pillow Emma hurled. "Look, it was an accident. Text him, apologize, move on. Don't make it weirder by avoiding him." Avoiding him. Easy for Sophie to say. By Sunday evening, Emma had drafted no fewer than 8 versions of her apology text. Each one either sounded too formal, "Mr. Reed, I regret the unintended correspondence," or too casual, "LOL, sorry about that, my bad." Finally, she settled on something short and painfully polite. "Mr. Reed, I apologize for the message earlier. It was meant for my friend and sent to you by mistake. Thank you for understanding." She stared at it for nearly 10 minutes before pressing send. The reply came less than a minute later. "No apology necessary, Emma. See, things happen. See you Monday." 4 words that might as well have been a thunderclap. "See you Monday." It sounded neutral, professional, utterly impossible. Monday morning arrived like a slow-motion nightmare. The Brightwave agency building gleamed against the city skyline, all glass and precision angles, a monument to perfection, and she was walking into it carrying the ghost of a bikini photo like a loaded secret. Her heart hammered as the elevator rose. On the 17th floor, the doors opened to the familiar hum of keyboards and muted chatter. The office smelled of espresso and ambition. Emma kept her head down, beelining for her cubicle. "Morning, Emma." The voice behind her froze her in place. She turned. Daniel Reed stood by the break room door holding a coffee mug, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The sunlight from the tall windows caught in his light brown hair, softening the edges of the man everyone described as made of steel and symmetry. "Good morning, Daniel," she stammered, instantly regretting the slip. He smiled faintly. "Daniel's fine. How was your weekend?" His tone was light, casual, but Emma swore there was a flicker of amusement, or was it warmth, behind his eyes. "It was relaxing," she lied, voice barely steady. "Yours?" "Productive. I reviewed your Johnson campaign drafts. Excellent work." He paused as if weighing something invisible in the air between them. Then, "Let's grab a few minutes later. I'd like you to lead a new project pitch." Emma blinked. "Lead?" He nodded. "You've earned it." He turned to refill his coffee, and she was left standing in the hum of the espresso machine, staring at his back as if trying to decode a language she'd never studied. Her first thought was relief, then confusion, then something else, something dangerously close to admiration. By midweek, the air around them had shifted. Every interaction was layered with something unspoken. Daniel would lean over her desk to point out a detail on a presentation, and her pulse would quicken. Their hands brushed over a shared tablet, and time seemed to pause for a fraction too long. But what unsettled her most wasn't attraction. It was awareness. The awareness that he never made her feel judged for that humiliating mistake. If anything, he treated her with even more respect. And yet every time she caught him watching her across the conference room, his gaze steady, thoughtful, unreadable, she wondered whether he was thinking about that accidental message too. That Friday, as the team filed out for the weekend, Daniel stopped by her desk. "Got a minute?" Her stomach dropped. "I wanted to discuss the Riverside account," he said. "It's a rebrand for a luxury hotel group. They've asked for a lead who's both creative and detail-oriented. I'm recommending you." Emma blinked. "Me? That's a major client." You've earned it, he repeated, his tone gentle but firm. It'll be a 3-day retreat next weekend. Clearwater Beach. I'll be there along with a few others from the team. Clearwater Beach, the very destination she and Sophie had been planning for months, the same trip that had started all this. For a moment, Emma could only nod, words caught somewhere between excitement and disbelief. As Daniel turned to leave, he paused at her side. And Emma, she looked up. That photo, he said quietly. It's forgotten. Except it wasn't. Not for either of them. Because as he walked away, the hum of the office faded, and she realized that no matter how professional things looked on the surface, something deep beneath it had already begun to shift. Something that would follow them both straight to Clearwater Beach. The sun shimmered off the runway as the plane sliced through the blue morning haze, carrying Emma Carter toward what she hoped would be a clean slate. Clearwater Beach, a name that should have meant relaxation, white sand, and frozen cocktails, now felt like the stage for a high-stakes performance. She'd packed her professionalism like armor, crisp white blouses, pressed skirts, neutral flats, nothing to remind anyone, least of all Daniel Reed, of the turquoise bikini that had flipped her world upside down. Yet as she glanced across the airplane aisle, where he sat reading over project notes in his quiet, controlled way, she felt a pulse in her chest she couldn't smother. Daniel looked different outside the office, softer somehow. His tie was gone, top button undone, his sleeves rolled just enough to reveal forearms that seemed carved by sunlight and habit. He caught her glance, and for the briefest moment, he smiled. A small, genuine smile that made her look away too quickly. Rachel, the team's red-haired designer, leaned across her seat toward Emma. Nervous? Emma forced a light laugh. About the presentation? Always. Rachel grinned. You'll crush it. Daniel believes in you. We all do. That last sentence echoed louder than it should have. Daniel believes in you. The words felt heavier than they were meant to. The resort gleamed like something out of a travel magazine. Cascading glass balconies, lush palm trees swaying in salt-heavy air, waves lapping rhythmically against perfect sand. When the team checked in, Emma's nerves twisted tighter. Their rooms were on the same executive floor, hers directly across the hall from Daniel's. In her room, she unpacked carefully, methodically. Laptop, presentation notes, chargers, her conservative navy dress for the evening's welcome reception. But as she opened the last zipper pocket, her breath caught. There it was, the turquoise bikini. She hadn't meant to pack it. Sophie must have slipped it in, the way she always meddled with Emma's lack of spontaneity. She almost laughed, before folding it tightly into a drawer, as if burying a crime scene. A soft knock startled her. She turned. Emma? Daniel's voice, calm, polite, too close. She opened the door halfway. Yes? Just checking in, making sure you're settled. The reception starts at 7. His eyes flicked briefly over her shoulder to the neatness of her room, then back to her. You look ready. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. She knew that, but her heart didn't. That night, under the glow of string lights on the beach terrace, champagne glasses clinked and the sea breeze carried the soft notes of jazz. Emma mingled politely with the Riverside executives, the scent of tropical flowers mixing with perfume and salt. She was mid-conversation with a marketing consultant when she caught sight of Daniel across the terrace, speaking with the CEO. Relaxed, laughing, sleeves rolled up again, ocean air teasing his hair. He looked human, not the controlled, unreachable director she knew. And then his gaze found hers. It was like a quiet gravity. No smile, no expression, just acknowledgement, and something more dangerous beneath it. Gregory Hartman, the VP of Brand Development, approached her then, eager and talkative. You're Emma Carter? Daniel's mentioned you, says you have the rare ability to make logic look like art. She blinked, caught off guard. That's kind of him. Daniel had talked about her. Gregory went on, chatting about campaign ideas, but Emma's focus kept flicking toward Daniel. The way he subtly kept his distance from her, even as his gaze occasionally brushed hers. As though he was fighting something invisible too. By the end of the night, when the crowd thinned and the music softened, Daniel approached her near the railing overlooking the waves. You made a strong impression tonight, he said quietly. So did you, she replied, trying for composure. You make this look easy. It's not. Their eyes met and held, long enough for the air between them to feel charged. Emma, he said, his voice lower now, about what happened before. Her stomach clenched. Please, can we not? I just want to say. He hesitated, his usual precision slipping. It didn't change the way I see you, but it made me realize I never really saw you before. She froze. Daniel? He exhaled, stepping back. Forget I said that. We should both get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. And with that, he was gone, leaving her with a storm she couldn't name. The next morning, dawn spilled gold across the ocean as Emma walked barefoot along the shore, trying to untangle the thoughts that had kept her awake. She barely noticed the sound of approaching footsteps until Daniel appeared beside her, wearing running shorts, a sheen of sweat glinting under the early light. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. She shook her head. Too many waves, in my brain I mean. He chuckled softly. I know the feeling. They walked in silence, waves foaming around their ankles. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Of course. Why marketing? The question surprised her. I like puzzles, she said. Every client's story is one. I get to build meaning from chaos. Daniel nodded slowly. That's a better answer than mine. What's yours? I was supposed to be an architect. Then I realized I liked building emotions more than buildings. She smiled. That's poetic for a boss. He looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that wasn't supposed to be there, something he couldn't quite hide anymore. I meant what I said last night, he murmured. That photo didn't change how I see you. It made me stop lying to myself about how I feel. The words hung between them like a live wire. Emma's pulse raced. Daniel, we can't. I know. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You work for me. It's wrong. It's complicated. It's everything it shouldn't be. Then why are we talking about it? She whispered. Because I can't stop thinking about you. The surf rolled in, erasing the space between their footprints. Emma didn't speak. She couldn't. Her entire life had been built on boundaries, between professional and personal, safe and dangerous. And here he was, erasing them with nothing but honesty. When she finally looked up, his expression wasn't predatory. It was scared. Tell me to stop, he said softly. Tell me this is a mistake, and I'll walk away. But she didn't. Because somewhere between that mistaken photo and this impossible morning, the line she thought was solid had already started to blur. And as the sun climbed higher, painting their shadows long and intertwined across the sand, Emma realized the most terrifying part of all. She didn't want to stop him. The evening settled over Clearwater Beach like a silk curtain drawn across the horizon. Waves shimmered under the dying sun, and a gentle wind carried the faint scent of salt and jasmine from the resort's garden. Inside the glass-walled conference hall, the Riverside Hotel executives applauded the end of the day's workshop. Emma Carter closed her laptop, her pulse still humming with adrenaline and exhaustion. It had been a good day, successful, professional, composed, but beneath that polished exterior, something volatile simmered. Every glance, every accidental brush of Daniel Reed's hand when passing her notes felt like a spark in a room full of oxygen. When the last of the team dispersed toward the elevators, Daniel caught her eye from across the room. He didn't speak. He just held her gaze a fraction too long before slipping his hands into his pockets and nodding toward the balcony that overlooked the sea. It was an unspoken invitation. Emma hesitated. She should have gone straight to her room. She should have closed her door, ordered room service, and fallen asleep to the white noise of the ocean. But curiosity, or maybe gravity, pulled her outside. The air was warm and heavy, filled with the rhythmic hush of the tide. Daniel stood by the railing, his shirt sleeves rolled, his tie loosened. The moonlight caught in his hair, painting him in silver. When she joined him, he turned slightly, his expression unreadable. You did well today, he said quietly. Thank you. She clasped her hands to keep them from trembling. The client seemed happy. They were impressed, he said. Gregory called you the mind behind the emotion. That's not a title he gives out easily. She smiled, trying to focus on the praise, but the air between them was electric. That's good to hear. Daniel's gaze lingered on her for a long moment, then his voice dropped, barely above a whisper. I shouldn't be here. Emma's breath caught. Then why are you? He laughed under his breath, a quiet, bitter sound. Because somewhere between that mistaken photo and the way you stood in that meeting room today, confident, sharp, fearless, I stopped being just your boss. The words hung in the air, suspended like a tightrope between and them. Emma turned toward the ocean, heart pounding so hard she could feel it echo in her fingertips. Daniel, I know, he said softly. I've been telling myself all week that this can't happen, that it would ruin everything we've built, professionally, personally, but I can't keep pretending I don't see you. He took a small step closer, his voice thick with tension. When you speak, everyone listens. When you walk into a room, it changes. And when you sent that photo, all I could think was how blind I've been for 2 years. Emma closed her eyes. You're my superior, she whispered. If anyone found out. I've already thought about that, he said quickly. I'll handle HR. I'll take responsibility for any conflict of interest. You'll never be the one blamed. She shook her head. It's not just about blame. It's about what people will think, what I'll think of myself. I've worked too hard to be taken seriously. Daniel moved closer, the distance between them dissolving. Emma, you've earned your respect 100 times over. I would never let anyone take that from you. His words weren't rehearsed. They sounded raw, honest. She turned to face him, and for a heartbeat, everything else fell away. The rules, the risk, the noise of the world beyond the balcony. All that remained was the sound of the sea and the look in his eyes, steady, unguarded, full of something she didn't dare name. Tell me to stop, he murmured again. Tell me this is a mistake. But Emma didn't move. The struggle inside her burned like a storm, the rational voice screaming, don't do this, clashing with the part of her that had been quietly starving for someone who saw her not as an employee, not as a function, but as a person. I can't tell you that, she whispered. Daniel's breath caught. He took one more step, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the faint tremor in his restraint. Then, I need you to understand what this means, he said. If we cross this line, it doesn't go back to what it was. I know, she said, her voice shaking, but I'm tired of living like I'm afraid of every line. For a suspended moment, neither of them moved. The night hummed with the weight of everything they couldn't say, and then Daniel reached up, brushing a strand of hair away from her face with a touch so careful it felt reverent. The first kiss was nothing like the movies. It wasn't neat or timed. It was hesitant, trembling, alive. When his lips touched hers, it was as though every wall she had built, years of professionalism, caution, composure, crumbled in silence. The world narrowed to the sound of his breath, the taste of salt and champagne, the distant crash of waves below. His hand found her waist, hers slid to the back of his neck, and the quiet restraint of years became something fierce and uncontrollable. When they finally pulled apart, neither spoke. Daniel rested his forehead against hers, breathing unsteadily. Emma, I know, she whispered. It changes everything. He nodded slowly. Then we'll change it carefully. For the first time in a long time, she smiled, a small, terrified, honest smile. I trust you. They stood there, suspended between ocean and sky, between fear and possibility, as the night pressed closer around them. Somewhere inside the hotel, the world of deadlines and policies waited. But out here, in the fragile quiet of moonlight and confession, something irreversible had begun. Neither of them saw the shadow moving across the balcony above, a hotel staffer clearing tables, glancing down at the sight of the company's creative director and his subordinate locked in an embrace. The shadow froze for a second, then disappeared silently back inside. Emma didn't know it yet, but that single witness, the flicker of another's eyes catching what was never meant to be seen, would become the spark that set off everything to come. The morning after felt both unreal, and dangerously vivid. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Emma's hotel room, turning the air gold and heavy. She woke slowly, the soft rumble of waves filling the silence. For a brief, sweet second, she didn't remember where she was. Then the faint rustle beside her reminded her. Daniel's arm draped over her waist, his breathing steady against her shoulder, his hand still entwined with hers as though even in sleep, he refused to let go. Emma lay still, the night replaying behind her eyes in flashes. The balcony kiss, the whispered confessions, the way he had looked at her as though seeing her for the first time. She should have felt shame, panic, guilt, but she didn't. What she felt instead was peace, that deep, quiet kind that comes after you stop running from yourself. Morning, Daniel murmured, voice husky from sleep. Emma turned toward him, and he smiled, a rare, unguarded expression that made him look years younger. Good morning, she whispered. His eyes studied her face, lingering. Regrets? None, she said honestly, then softer. You? He shook his head. Only that we didn't meet like this sooner. It should have been perfect, but even in that golden quiet, reality began to seep back in. The meeting later that morning, the colleagues in the rooms next door, the unspoken risk that hung between them like the last wave before a storm. Daniel sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. We'll need to be careful, he said. No one can know, not yet. I'll speak with HR when we're back in the city. Request a reassignment so there's no conflict. You deserve to be seen for your work, not for this." Emma nodded, though a flicker of unease twisted in her chest. "And if someone already suspects?" "They won't," he said firmly. "We were discreet." But as he said it, his gaze flicked toward the balcony doors just for a moment, and Emma caught it, a trace of doubt. Downstairs, the presentation room buzzed with energy. Laptops glowed, executives chatted in clusters, and the scent of espresso mixed with expensive perfume. Emma moved through the crowd like a ghost, smiling, answering questions, nodding when people complimented her work. But her mind was split in two, half fixed on the pitch, half scanning for Daniel. He arrived late, wearing his usual calm-like armor, but she could tell something had shifted. His movements were sharper, his focus absolute, his voice even more measured than usual. He didn't look at her once. She understood. He was protecting them both, but it still stung. When it came time for her to present, Emma found her confidence returning, her voice steady, her ideas clear, her slides crisp and elegant. Every word seemed to land with precision. Gregory Hartman, the VP, leaned forward halfway through and whispered something to a colleague that made them both nod approvingly. When it ended, applause filled the room. Gregory stood and declared, "That was exceptional, Ms. Carter. You've given this brand its soul back." Daniel, sitting quietly in the back, allowed himself a small, proud smile, but only for a heartbeat before his expression reset to neutral. That evening, the team gathered for a final dinner on the terrace. The sky was painted in shades of fire and rose, the ocean whispering beyond the glass. S-rail. Emma sat at one end of the long table beside Rachel and Tim, laughing at small jokes, sipping champagne, but she could feel it. That tension coiled like a secret heartbeat beneath the noise. Daniel was at the far end, engaged in conversation with Gregory and two senior execs, his laughter genuine, but his eyes distant. And then, it happened. A subtle shift, a glance, a flicker of attention from Gregory's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire, who was looking from Daniel to Emma, to the faint red mark just visible beneath Emma's jawline. It was over in a second, but Emma saw the recognition flicker in Claire's gaze, the quick narrowing of eyes, the slow, knowing smile. Her stomach dropped. Later, when the dinner ended, Emma retreated to her balcony, the humid air pressing close. The ocean gleamed dark silver under the moon. She was halfway through convincing herself that no one had really noticed when there was a knock on her door. Daniel stood there, still in his dinner clothes, his tie loosened again. "We need to talk," he said quietly. She stepped aside to let him in. His expression was unreadable but tense, his eyes flicking toward the balcony before settling on her. "Someone knows," he said flatly. Emma's blood turned to ice. "What?" "I don't know who," he said. "But after the dinner, Gregory pulled me aside, asked if there was anything between us that could compromise professionalism." Her breath caught. "What did you say?" "The truth," Daniel said. "That we're not compromising anything. That you're one of the most talented people I've ever worked with." She swallowed. "Did he believe you?" Daniel hesitated. "Maybe, but Claire was there, and she's observant. I saw the look she gave me." Emma's mind whirled. "If this gets out, I won't let it," he cut in. His voice was sharp now, protective. "Let me handle it. When we return, I'll go straight to HR. File everything properly before rumors can spread." "And if they already have?" she asked, her voice breaking slightly. Daniel stepped closer, his tone softening. "Then we face it together." She looked up at him, eyes searching his. "Together," she echoed, though a tremor ran through her. He brushed his fingers against her cheek, the gesture full of tenderness and tension both. "You trust me?" "With everything," she whispered. But neither of them saw Claire that night, on her own balcony just 2 floors below, holding her phone, the faint glow of her camera screen illuminating her face. The photo she had just taken was perfectly framed. The company's creative director standing in Emma Carter's hotel room, their silhouettes close, intimate, unmistakable. She lowered the phone slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she typed a short message and hit send. To Gregory Hartman. Subject: "You might want to see this before tomorrow's debrief." The image attached glowed under the moonlight like a fuse waiting to be lit. And upstairs, Emma and Daniel, still caught in the fragile, stolen quiet of their connection, had no idea that the storm had already begun. The storm didn't break with thunder. It came quietly, in the form of an early morning email. When Emma's phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m., she expected a message from Sophie checking in, or a calendar reminder for the team's debrief. Instead, the subject line froze her blood. Internal review meeting. 9 a.m., mandatory attendance. She sat up in bed, her throat dry. The message was from HR. It was short. This meeting concerns recent professional conduct during the Riverside project. Attendance required for all key personnel. Her first thought wasn't for herself. It was Daniel. She jumped out of bed, threw on a loose shirt, and knocked on his door across the hall. He opened it within seconds, hair disheveled, still in a t-shirt, eyes alert but weary. He'd already seen the email. "It's begun," he said quietly. "Who?" "I don't know who started it. Someone must have sent something." He hesitated, then added, "Gregory was distant at breakfast. Claire wouldn't meet my eye." Emma's stomach twisted. "You think she—" Daniel exhaled, jaw tight. "It doesn't matter who. What matters is how we handle this. We tell the truth. We don't let them turn it into something ugly." But she could see it in his face, the storm behind his calm. At 9, the meeting room felt colder than the rest of the resort. HR had joined via video call. Gregory sat at the head of the table, arms folded. Claire hovered near the window, her expression unreadable. "Thank you all for joining," the HR manager began. "This meeting concerns potential misconduct and conflict of interest during the Riverside planning retreat. A photograph was submitted anonymously last night." Emma's heart stopped. Gregory slid a printed photo across the table. It was blurry, a shadow through the balcony glass, but clear enough. Daniel standing close to Emma in her room, his hand on her shoulder. The air thickened until it was hard to breathe. Gregory's tone was polite but hard. "Daniel, care to explain?" Daniel's response came with measured precision, though Emma could hear the strain beneath it. "Yes, the photo is real. Emma and I did spend time together last night. We discussed aspects of the presentation and—" Gregory cut him off. "You were in her room." "Yes," Daniel said, voice steady. "And before any assumptions are made, I want to state clearly, our relationship is personal. It began during this retreat, but it has not interfered with our work. If blame is to fall, it falls on me as the senior officer." The room was silent. Emma felt her pulse hammer in her ears. She wanted to speak, to share the burden, but Daniel's hand brushed hers under the table, a small, protective warning. Gregory finally spoke, his voice lower. "Do you realize what this could mean, Daniel, for both of you, for the company's credibility, the client's trust?" "I do," Daniel said. "And I also know that pretending it didn't happen would be dishonest." The HR representative sighed. "We'll have to open a formal review. Effective immediately, Daniel, you'll be suspended pending investigation. Emma, you'll return to the main office but remain off client-facing duties until further notice." The words landed like stones. Emma stared at Daniel, but he didn't flinch. "Understood," he said. Gregory nodded curtly. Meeting adjourned. When everyone filed out, Daniel stayed seated, hands clasped. Emma remained beside him, her mind spinning. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong. We didn't." He looked at her then, really looked, tired, calm, and somehow still gentle. "I knew the risk. I'd rather lose my title than lie about us." "Daniel." He reached across the table and brushed his thumb against her knuckles. "You have to go back today. Don't fight this. Not yet. I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone." He smiled faintly. "You won't have to. Just trust me one more too, Impo." The following week was a blur of whispers and speculation back at Brightwave. The photo had made its rounds, quietly, discreetly, but unmistakably. Some people pitied her, others envied her. A few smirked when she passed. Emma tried to focus on her work, but the silence in Daniel's office, the absence of his voice, his guidance, his laughter, felt unbearable. Then on Friday afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello?" "Emma, it's me." Her breath hitched. "Daniel, where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he said, "but things are moving faster than expected. HR called a board review for Monday. They want to terminate my contract." "What?" "I'm not fighting it," he continued. "Not directly. I'm using the meeting to show them everything. Emails, timestamps, the Riverside results. Proof that our work didn't suffer because of us. That love doesn't have to mean compromise." Emma felt tears sting her eyes. "You're risking everything." He laughed softly. "Maybe, but sometimes the only way to win is not to play by their rules." "Daniel." "Promise me something," he interrupted. "No matter what happens, don't apologize for this. Not to them, not to anyone." She swallowed hard. "I promise." Monday came like a storm front. Emma waited outside the boardroom, heart pounding, unable to stay away despite being told she wasn't needed. Through the glass walls, she saw Daniel standing before the executives, composed, resolute. His voice, though muffled, carried conviction. He wasn't pleading, he was defending her, their integrity, their work, their humanity. When the door finally opened, Gregory stepped out first. His expression was unreadable. Daniel followed, shoulders squared, eyes calm. "Well?" Emma asked. He smiled, a tired, genuine smile. "They offered me two choices, resign quietly or take a demotion with reassignment. I took the demotion." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "Because if I left, they'd make you collateral damage," he said simply. "This way, I stay close enough to make sure you're safe, and to rebuild what we started, properly this time." She blinked back tears. "You'd give up your position for me?" "For us," he corrected softly. "For something real." And in that sterile hallway, surrounded by the hum of corporate machinery, Emma realized something she hadn't before. Their story hadn't been about a mistake at all. It had been about choice, about two people willing to defy what was expected for something that felt like truth. Weeks later, on a quiet Friday evening, Emma walked past Daniel's new office. Smaller, less glamorous, tucked into a corner of the building. The door was open. He was sitting at his desk, sleeves rolled, sketching out ideas for a new campaign. When he looked up and saw her, the fatigue melted into a smile. "Still working late?" she teased. "Old habits," he said. "Come in." She did, closing the door softly behind her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she pulled something from her bag, a printed photo. It was that photo, the one that had nearly destroyed them. But this time she'd reframed it, cropped it so that the focus wasn't the closeness, but the light. The moon washing over two silhouettes by the sea. "I had it developed," she said, "to remind me that even mistakes can be beautiful." Daniel looked at it for a long moment. "You're not afraid anymore." "No," she said, "because the worst already happened, and we're still here." He stood, walked over, and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Gentle, unhurried. Outside, the city hummed, unaware of the quiet rebellion unfolding inside that small office. And as the last light of day stretched across the glass, Emma understood that their story wasn't about an accident anymore. It was about survival, courage, and the kind of love that refuses to apologize for existing. Because sometimes, the most powerful storms don't destroy you. They reveal who you really are.